From the Gert Boyle studio at OPB, this is Think Out Loud. I'm Jen Chavez. For the past 3 years, the Oregon State Police and Oregon's tribal communities have benefited from the hard work of the agency's first ever tribal liaison. Glendon Smith, an enrolled member of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, has been building relationships with Oregon's 9 federally recognized tribes as part of his job. He's also educated state troopers on how to interact with tribal citizens and other law enforcement agencies. And he recently received a Public Service Ambassador Award from Oregon Governor Tina Kotek. And he is with us now in the studio to talk more about his work. Glendon Smith, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. We're so pleased you could join us. So this position, tribal liaison with the Oregon State Police, when you first saw that and that it was open, what interested you about it? What drew you towards doing this kind of work?
Well, the fact that it works with the 9 tribes of Oregon and that it's a government-to-government position, which I recently completed being on tribal council and secretary-treasurer for my tribe. So it was kind of good timing. I wanted to go into a field that I was familiar with and that I was familiar with the work, and I would be able to just, pick it up with the state as well. And it was a state job, so I was always curious what it would be like to be employed with the state. So I thought, well, maybe I'll apply. And so here I am.
And there you go. Here we are. You started this job in 2023. When you first were getting started, what were some of the first gaps that you noticed that you wanted to try to address in your role?
Well, one of the first gaps was trust. I guess you can say sending notices to tribes, trying to get their attention to set up meetings. And one of the first things we did was set up meet and greets with the 9 tribes. We met with the 9 tribal councils in 2023, myself and Captain Fox, who was my supervisor at the time. So it was just getting them to agree to meet face-to-face, which we did. And that was our goal that year, was to have face-to-face meetings. And luckily we achieved that before the end of the year. So we was pretty happy about that.
And in those meetings, what did you hear from the representative of tribal councils about what they wanted to address or work on in their relationship with the Oregon State Police?
Well, one of the first things I heard was what's being taught at DPSST. What is their curriculum? What are troopers, new recruits being taught before they come out into the workforce and execute their duties? So what I did was I was allowed to go sit in on the curriculum at DPSST. Jurisdiction in Indian Country is one of them. It's a 2-hour course taught by U.S. Attorney Tim Simmons and Public Chief Police Brian Dubray out of the CT Clusie tribe. And then they also had a 2-hour curriculum on missing and murdered Indigenous persons. So those two, that was my answer for the tribes. And I shared those resources with the tribes as well.
So they were curious about learning more about what was going on your side of the equation, right?
Yeah, they wanted to know what the troopers were learning as far as, tribal law, tribal land, enforcement, shared authority, what they're being educated on. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, what mindset do you bring as someone in your role to meetings like this or listening sessions that you might have with tribal councils or tribal members who are there to ask questions, but maybe also share their experiences and concerns with you? What do you find is most important for you going into those meetings to keep in mind?
Going in there with the understanding that I understand treaty rights. We have a couple of tribes in Oregon that still have their original agreements with the United States, and that's Warm Springs and Umatilla. And you have the other tribes that have restored rights. And so going into those meetings, having I wouldn't say a clear understanding, but an understanding of what their major documents are, their governing documents, how to communicate with tribes, and when we talk about those. So that's important to tribes. When you let them know that, you've read their major documents or reviewed them, that opens up some doors, that makes them want to collaborate more. So, and I've done that. I've had a chance to look at their executive orders, the treaties, their restored rights. And so once you do that, it creates this trust that you can build from with those tribes. So, and I let them know that I served on tribal council one term, and that really goes a long way with them. So I understand how they govern their people and their communities and their nations. So that I think that creates some comfort when you're communicating with these tribes.
I think something that you're kind of hitting on, and I think it's important to be clear about, is that these 9 federally recognized tribes have different perspectives, different cultures, and different expectations. Like, how do you keep that in mind and navigate that and help them navigate that and communicating with your agency when working in this role as a liaison?
Yeah, so that's always a topic of discussion no matter where I go, that when you talk to one tribe, it doesn't mean you get the perspective of the other 8 tribes. So each tribe is unique. Each tribe has their own language, their own culture, their own traditions, expectations. And so, going to their community events, getting involved, getting to know some of their elders. I encourage troopers to attend some of the public events like powwows, or if there's a missing and murdered Indigenous event going on, encourage them to go to that. And they've been open to doing that. So it's just encouraging police to be more active in communities, and that goes a long way with the people too. So,
Yeah. When we're talking about, the cultural differences between these tribes, do they also have different law enforcement needs and priorities too? Like maybe one tribe has more trouble with one thing and another doesn't so much, but they really need help with this other thing. What does that look like?
Yeah, so talking about like Public Law 280, Oregon's a Public Law 280 state. And most of the tribes in Oregon are Public Law 280, at least 5 of them are. So that's where the state has authority on their tribal lands. 4 of the tribes are not Public Law 280, Warm Springs, Umatilla, Burns, and Cow Creek. And so those tribes, they are they're more interested in doing their own policing and punishing of offenders that commit offenses on their lands. Some of the other tribes do like being 280. They do use the state to their advantage. They get help with arrests or calls of service, or putting people in jail, stuff like that. So some tribes, don't mind it, and other tribes want to be more sovereign. They want to call the shots on, how to handle things. So it's kind of 50-50, I would say. I want to be careful with that, but, that's just kind of my observation.
I'm glad you brought up that law, Public Law 180, because I know Oregon now has a process for tribes to request the retrocession of Public Law 280 if they want to change there. This is something we've learned about a little bit on this show before. How do you think that will affect your role as some tribes may start to go through that process that's now available to them?
I don't think it'll affect my role that much. We're just starting that. The Oregon has just started the process and a path for tribes that want to retroseed, which is what's been kind of missing since even the tribes that were restored. What is that path? If you look at some of their executive orders, it talks that language is in there towards the end. Tribes may wish to retroseed at some point. That is an option. But, where's the guidance? What is the path to do that? So Oregon has created that path with this new legislation, and it kind of guides tribes through that process. So as far as my role, maybe all tribes at some point want to become more sovereign and, less reliant on the state. So there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, I'm here to serve, state police and work between the tribes. So, I don't really think it'll affect my position that soon. I mean, so I think it's coming.
Well, if you're just tuning in, folks, we are talking with Glendon Smith. He serves as the inaugural tribal liaison for the Oregon State Police. I want to bring up another thing that you've mentioned a couple times in this conversation that I think is top of mind for many folks, missing and murdered Indigenous people cases. Right. What kind of work do you do around those in your capacity with the Oregon State Police?
Well, I work with some of the resources that are available to the community, especially in Portland here. I work with this organization called the Search and Hope Alliance, and they do a lot of boots on the ground work. So that group is headed up by Kimberly Smart. She's actually gone to reservations and performed searches, Umatilla, Siletz, I believe, and has been real resourceful to people and missing and murdered families that have been affected by that, that tragedy. But I also work with Portland Police Bureau when needed. I have my contacts there. I collaborate with them as I need to. Sometimes we get people inquiring about missing persons, and I find out they're in the Portland area, so who do I reach out to? It's typically Portland Police Bureau. They have jurisdiction, so it's usually their case. So I have to reach out to my contact, and sometimes people want to know who the detective is on the case or the lead investigator. So I try to find out for people who that person is, and then connect them so they can begin communicating. So.
I understand another thing that you've been doing work around is the repatriation of cultural artifacts and remains that Oregon State Police holds. What has that looked like for you?
That is, that's kind of at the top of my list right now. So Governor Kotek issued an order 2406, and that directed state agencies to do an audit of all tribal items in their possession and create a plan to repatriate them back to tribes. So state police has had some items and evidence that were confiscated from individuals that had them unlawfully. So we have that list. We have a spreadsheet. I meet once a month with a group to go over those items and talk about what tribes we're going to give notice to, and then set meetings up with those tribes, to talk about what to do with those items. And some of these items are pretty old. We have one from 1995 that we're dealing with. And so last year we had 2 cases where we gave notice to 4 tribes: Warm Springs, Burns, Fort Bidwell, which is a California tribe, and Klamath. And we buried these items in the Crump Lake area, which is southeast of Oregon. That was the group consensus, was to do that. And so there was another case that we dealt with that same group, but I won't talk about that one. Same thing, the items were reburied in the areas where they were taken. So we have this cultural item survey work that we're working on. It's basically the same thing. We're creating a plan to return all the items to the tribes. We got to start by giving notice first, though. So we haven't started that process yet. We're getting close, though.
I know you also worked with the Klamath tribe to make an enforcement plan after the J.C. Boyle Dam was removed.
Right.
What was behind that?
Well, once that dam was removed, when the water left, it uncovered a lot of ground. And what happened was there was all these artifacts at the surface that people, seen and observed, and they started going in there with their tools and buckets and started picking the stuff up. And the Klamath tribe did not appreciate that. So immediately they contacted state police. We started having meetings, and then we created an enforcement plan to help the tribe, regulate, some of this stuff. And so I think the plan is still ongoing. I haven't got an update on it yet, but I think they got it under control. The Klamath tribe was able to buy some fencing to fence off the area, put some cameras up, and got some of their guys to monitor the area. Klamath is now a recognized police department too, so they got their ORI number, they got sworn police, they got their codes, so they're active now. Before, when that dam came down, they did not have a active police department, so that's why they reached out to state police for help. So, but now they got their police department, their police chief, and they're functioning full board.
That's great to hear about that. Good work happening. You mentioned a little bit about how you work internally with Oregon State Police, the Oregon State Troopers. What have you found most important that you want your colleagues at the Oregon State Police to know when working with tribal councils, tribal governments, tribal communities?
Just that, kind of like what we talked about earlier, that each tribes are unique, and what might be important to one tribe might not. What might be a priority to one tribe might not be as much of a priority to another. That tribes do have their own police, and I know the troopers understand this. They're certified just like state police are. They're just tribal, so they do the same work. So. And I guess I'd want my colleagues to know that, since I've been here, they've done a great job helping tribes and working together, and highly trained, highly professional. I've seen a lot of good work come out of the troopers since I've been there, and I'm grateful for. Some tribes don't have the resources that state police does. That's why they reach out to them, and they get that help. So,
you've been in this position for a couple years now. What do you find yourself most proud of when you think about the work you've been doing?
Just that I've been trusted with with the government-to-government report, which is all the collaborations between state police and mostly tribal law enforcement agencies. So it's an annual report. I'm proud that I've been trusted to oversee that as the liaison. So it's a tribal government-to-government report, but it's important work, and so I monitor that all year long, and so. just being trusted that my tribal perspective that I bring to the agency is being used and appreciated, because, state police has allowed me to grow as an individual, in my work. So they've covered my tribal relations program at Portland State down here, and that was pretty substantial,
Yeah.
And so one thing I want to bring up though before we end, we have a training coming up in August next month, on August 11th, that I've invited a lot of people to, and I got the registration link. Oregon State Police is partnering with Amber Alert in Indian Country, which is a group out of Phoenix, Fox Valley Technical College. They're doing a child abduction tabletop exercise, 4-hour training. It's free of charge on one half of the day. And then in the morning, State Police is doing an Amber Alert training that's free. So I'd like people to know about that training coming up that we're partnering with. And it'll be in Pendleton, Oregon.
Well, Glendon Smith, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Yeah.
Glendon Smith is the first ever tribal liaison for the Oregon State Police.